Williams, and welcome to What's Eating Harlem. We cover the most exciting community in the world. There's so much happening in Harlem. Let's get started.
I am honored to be a part of it. I'm honored to be able to give visual voice to this pain and trauma. I think the work is important, not just for the sake of it being art, but for the statement that it's making. I think it's important for collectively as a community for us to come together.
Black Lives Matter comes to Harlem. We talk to the artist behind the Harlem Black Lives Matter street mural. Renaissance to Renaissance. Our new series will cover the history of the Harlem Renaissance, starting in 1900 to today's emergence of a new Harlem Renaissance. And our fascinating historian, Lana Turner, will take us on this journey. All that and more coming up next. I'm here with Dianne Smith. She, along with Lerone Wilson, contributed their time, energy, and talent to the Black Lives Matter mural in Harlem. Dianne, would you explain your work as a multidisciplinary artist?
Certainly. So multidisciplinary means that I work in all mediums. So basically, depending on what I want to say, I find the best medium to say it in. That doesn't always mean that I am proficient in that medium. It just means that aesthetically I'm trying to accomplish something and have the message come through the work of art.
And so what mediums have you been working with?
So I may work with wood, metal, found objects, if you will, and not necessarily found, but things that are in my immediate surrounding, my own discarded materials. I work a lot with fiber. I work a lot with brown butcher paper. I transform spaces with brown paper. I make huge installations, and they're site-specific. I am an abstract expressionist painter. I paint in all mediums, from watercolor to oils, acrylic. I do work with video as well, and I use photography. I am by no means a photographer. I respect the medium too much to call myself a photographer per se, but there are times that I need to use the medium to articulate my vision.
Now, your work will be on display in Harlem as there's a mural for Black Lives Matter. Aside from wanting to display the African diaspora, what really drew you in to want to participate?
In that particular project, for one, it's in the community I live in. I am a firm believer as an artist, part of my charge and responsibility is to make work where I live. That is very important to me. I think the messaging in direct relationship to this work is extremely important. I am honored to be a part of it. I'm honored to be able to give visual voice to this pain and trauma. I think the work is important, not just for the sake of it being art, but for the statement that it's making. I think it's important for collectively as a community for us to come together and sort of deal with that shared trauma.
So what letters do you have out of the words?
Okay, let's matter. I have the 2 T's, yeah.
And what can we anticipate seeing?
Well, you can anticipate seeing 3 very distinct images. The largest image is probably going to be about 10-foot stenciled, and then text. Text will be along with that. The text serves dual purposes. For one, the text goes along with the 3 images in terms of talking about who each of those people are beyond the hashtag, if you will, but sort of like speaking in the images, also speaking to that they were people, they were human beings with lives that mattered before they became hashtags, before they became sort of martyrs in this cause, that they were people, and that's important. Text, I Am Not Your Negro, is part of it.
Paying homage to James Baldwin.
Paying homage to James Baldwin, and as he once famously said, how could you be Negro in America and not be enraged?
Tell me, how do you define your personal style of art?
I would sum that up in 3 words: fly chic.
And what does that mean?
It's just elegant, fly, and chic all in one.
And what exactly is your style of sculpting?
I would say it's sculpted painting in a minimalist kind of minimal style.
What materials are you using?
I'm really using beeswax, resin, carnauba, and powder pigment to create sculpted paintings.
And with your artwork, how have you made that into a full career?
Well, I just kind of believed in myself first and foremost, because I just been this person that had this creativeness in my soul and my spirit. And spiritually, I think the ancestors spoke to me and to get me in a state of mind that I could create art in whatever form that I wanted to and focus on. And basically, it was more of a spiritual sort of vessel that came to me that gave me insight to just stay focused on the creativeness of who I am and creativity of what I do in terms of my, as I said before, fly chic. And I just kind of put it together and composed a really dynamic sort of, non-traditional or non-traditional in terms of the medium that I'm using, because it's very ancient and a lot of people don't really use this medium. So I kind of combined it with my own style and I just put it together, and here it is.
Now, the world's focus is on Black Lives Matter.
True.
And you've been commissioned to participate in a mural that is taking place in Harlem. Can you tell me, one, what made you want to get involved?
Well, I mean, the dynamics of what's going on around in the world and with our people, we had to, I'm glad the younger people and the younger generation have made this political stance and just trying to convey that seeing these people being killed and murdered unarmed and literally just their lives taken away, I can feel the pain and pressure that they want to come out and, try to get this to cease and, get some kind of dialogue going for us to come together to demand for the rights to be in our favor of not being killed like that, because it takes a lot for a person, an officer, to approach someone and, for the reasons like George Floyd, he was handcuffed and they had him subdued and he wasn't a threat. So to be in that situation and have that on video and him having his knee on his neck, it was just completely wrong. They had him subdued. So the situation of us being where we are now and trying to get some kind of dialogue going for these things to stop in our community with Black people being killed for no reason and, just whatever process of what they're doing and thinking about how they not doing their job, we have to stop that. It has to be some dialogue for the right kind of police situations to stop these kind of crimes from happening, and then, you know, nothing happening to the police.
I think that conversations with friends and family is a space of healing, and I think that that's important for us, to be able to talk to our loved ones and share. It would be more detrimental if I had no space or no place to share this trauma with. But I think it's healing, and it's communal self-care that we are able to talk to one another. And whether it's the workspace and the things that we're experiencing on day to day, or these kinds of trauma, that we have that space, there's a shared experience, that you're not in this by yourself, that you can come home and you can pick up the phone, you can call a girlfriend, you can call a sister, and they understand. Or you can be in a room with someone and look across the room and they know exactly. I think that that is one of the things that has saved us and helped us collectively be able to move through the perpetual trauma that is inflicted upon us day in and day out. I said on a talk recently, I get the kumbaya moments. I hear y'all, but y'all have 400 plus years. Y'all gonna have to give me more than 3 weeks. I can't get there. I'm not there yet where it's like the conversations about allies and this, that, and the other. And I understand catchwords are really, really cute, but I'm not with you. I'm not there yet. And you're gonna have to give me some time. That's like being in an abusive relationship, and because he's sorry, now I'm all of a sudden like, okay, yeah, that doesn't work for me.
On this electric right, world sees us tonight. We're lightning bolts in the sky, flashing with thunder.
Scene 103, take 1.
I thought we'd be on the same page about this, and we're not.
How do I know the way I'm gonna respond to it?
I want you to get the vaccine because I want you to be safe.
What if you end up in the hospital? That's what I'm scared of.
If you was to die, man, that would literally kill me, man.
I hug you.
Yeah. If it made you feel that way, bro, I would probably do. I love you, man. I love you too.
This one's for the real ballers and shot callers, the sisterhood of women in tech. They're discovering cures, building apps, and programming the blockchain. They're CEOs, worldwide hustlers who can make it rain. They're tearing down the old boys club and seeing big gains. Because when women in tech come together, you know they make that change.
Freedom. It's at the core of who we are. The freedom to live without fear, to jog where we please, to wear a hoodie. The freedom to breathe. Before we celebrate the freedom most Americans have, we must fight for the freedom all Americans deserve. Because all lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
And it's
Yeah, hi, I'm Jen Jade, and I love What's Eat in Harlem.
The real question is, I've always heard the Harlem Renaissance used synonymously with the new Negro. Are those two the same? Are they different? Can you clarify that?
Okay, so we're going to get to the Harlem Renaissance by saying, okay, here we've got 1920, which is a good benchmark. Think about the Harlem Renaissance. It's a word, it's a phrase that we use. And you have to think about it as a more or less 10-year sequence. So what makes that special? What makes it different? What's really going on to create that energy? There is something also called the new Negro, which sometimes is also interchangeably used or thought about, but in fact is very different. So that story is going to take me before 1920.
Okay, let's
go. To be able to get you to 1920, we have to start earlier than that.
Okay.
Okay.
So what is that story?
Okay. The story, if you recall, I mentioned pugilism as a major factor as a new Negro. Okay. Now, what do you really mean, Lana Turner? What are you really talking about? Okay. What we're really talking about is, in 1910, the only thing anybody talked about, the only headline in any paper was a fight. The heavyweight championship fight between a black man, whose last name was Johnson, and a white man whose name was Jeffries. Well, it didn't take Johnson very long to knock him out. And in fact, Johnson became the heavyweight champion of the world. This fight took place in Reno, Nevada. And for the most part, most people weren't really paying a lot of attention. They did pay attention, but, you know, and people weren't all that upset. I mean, after all, he should have won, believe it or not. Even in the more conservative press, well, you know, that was fine. But what was so different about Johnson was that he had this clear disdain for his opponent. He clearly relished being on the top, and he was not apologetic in any kind of way. Point number one. Point number two, which didn't make him such a great guy with even the black elite, was that he was married to a white woman. And until the white press started to latch on to his lifestyle, that it became a cause célèbre. This became a huge, huge deal. This was in column after column, paper after paper. And the thing is that the wife that he had was in Chicago. He owned a nightclub. She killed herself. She committed suicide. And that was bad enough, except that he marries another white woman. And at this point, the press, white people have had enough. I mean, you know, black people, no, you cannot be all that and be on top of us. You are not going to be all that. And so they attempt to, and not just attempt, they take him to court on something called the Man's Act, which essentially was a law that prohibited men, from taking women across straight lines for prostitution. But the law was so wide and varied that they were able to try and bring him in. He wasn't the only one, but this was one of the ways in which they were going to say, black men, you're going to be under our feet. No, you cannot get away with marrying white women. You cannot get away with being the heavyweight champion of the world. No, you can't get away with that.
You have to pay a toll.
You have to pay. So they convicted him and he left. He fled. He went to Europe. Bang. Okay, so let me move on with the story because you asked me about the New Negro and the Harlem Renaissance. So I'm into the New Negro at this point.
I really don't care.
Freedom. It's at the core of who we are. The freedom to live without fear, to jog where we please, to wear a hoodie. The freedom to breathe. Before we celebrate the freedom most Americans have, we must fight for the freedom all Americans deserve. Because all lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
We are chopping it up with the host of Marriage Bootcamp, Dr. Ish Major. Welcome to the show.
TGIF. When you and I sit down and have a heart-to-heart with no phones, no distraction, am I your person? That's the question.
Every weekday, Kelly says, I love Ish on my screen. Is he single, asking for a friend?
Join the chat. I am single, Kelly. Who's a friend?
Kelly, who's the friend? Please comment back.
On Fox Soul.
This one's for the real ballers and shot callers, the sisterhood of women in tech. They're discovering cures, building apps, and programming the blockchain. They're CEOs, worldwide hustlers who can make it rain. They're tearing down the old boys club and seeing big gains. Because when women in tech come together, you know they make that change.
My mom wanted my life to be better than what she had as a kid. When I became a mom myself, I feel like my whole world changed. You don't have to be a climate scientist to want to protect the earth. You always want the next generation to have something better than what you had.
Think of Johnson as the archetype of the new Negro. I am not going to be under your foot. I am going to be a man. I'm going to be the man I want to be.
I am a man.
I am a man, but I'm going to be who I want to be. And I'm not going to be dictated to. So, kind of crude in a certain kind of way, but still, he was still himself. So think of him as like point number one, as new Negro. Okay? Point number two. So let's move down the road or move up the road to a collection of poetry. that was published 1922, 1923 was this collection by James Weldon Johnson. James Weldon Johnson was considered, you know, a major statesman of the black community. By this time, he lived in New York, but he came from, he taught school, he was a principal, he was a publisher, he became a lawyer, he was general counsel to the United States for Venezuela, he was a composer, he was a writer, like with his brother composed Lift Every Voice and Sing. Okay. James Weldon Johnson goes on to create this anthology of what would be new Negro writers.
The Book of American
Negro Poetry. And in here, you know, he doesn't leave out that older guard, Dunbar, and he doesn't leave those people out, and they're in here. But what's important about this is the introduction that he writes.
And what does he say?
The introduction here talks about why these writers are important at this time. The new Negro. 3, Countee Cullen. Countee Cullen he is adopted by Reverend Cullen, who is the minister of Salem United Methodist Church. The church still stands at 129th and 7th. He adopts Cullen. Cullen is famously a brilliant student wherever he is. He attends DeWitt Clinton High School, and it was a famously marvelous school. I mean, there were a lot of people that came out of there that went on to do these great things, but he published his first poem, I Have a Rendezvous with Death. And it wasn't that it was a fun poem, it wasn't that. He was really a student of Keats. He was very much a very formal poet in many ways. But he was able to express things within that formality that made him stand out. So for all of his instructors, they were like, I mean, is he like 16 years old or 17 when he writes that poem? It's amazing. He goes on to NYU and does the same thing there. It's like amazing. And he goes to Harvard. Amazing. His first book, Color, it gets published in, this is a big deal, 1925.
It's simply amazing that you have the book.
This is the book that was published in 1925. So why was this important? Think about all of his pedigree to start with, and his ability to be able to use language. By the time his books, and there are many books that come out on Cullen, but he is, at the time, the most celebrated writer of the Harlem Renaissance.
That's all the time we have for now. But join us next time on What's Eating Harlem. See you uptown.
Yeah. Me and you taking flight on this electric ride. World sees us tonight. We're lightning bolts in the sky, flashing with thunder, and it's beautiful all over. Yeah. Let me feel vibrations going through my system. Send shockwaves to me. Send shockwaves to me. Now make it go boom.